Wolf Spirit Radio.
Simon actively encourages questions to be asked. We have a special facility. Go to the top of the wolfspiritradio.com/listen area and click on the Ask Question. In the subject line, please put Simon Parkes. This will enable us to forward questions to the appropriate guest when they're online.
The next 2 hours will be full of debate, interview guests and up-to-date news. Please join Simon and play an active role. Connecting Consciousness Show. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you might be on this planet. We are starting the alternative Sunday service here at Wolf Spirit Radio, and our first show this evening is Connecting Consciousness with Simon Parkes. So, without much ado, actually there is a little bit of ado. Please. Now, it's gotten to a point when it's starting to get not funny anymore, and people are sending me messages to my private email, to my private Skype, to my, even to the station, with questions for Simon. We've got a special place for putting questions. If you go to wolfspiritradio.com/listen, there's Ask a Question or Question in the top menu. Please use that. We will ignore and block any other questions because they take up space. There's so many people in the chat room that if you put a question in, it will just interrupt everybody's conversation. So let's keep that respected, and then everybody's going to be happy, especially me. Okay, right now, Simon. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Well,
yeah.
Yes, good evening to you, JP, and good evening to all the listeners. It's lovely to be back again. So much has occurred, and it's just great to have the chance to meet all the wonderful people who listen to the show.
All right, now everybody's asked so many questions that it's just crashed the server. So I'm going to start with the questions that I've got.
Before you do, can I just give you an update? Well,
please, because everybody's asking, where's Simon? When's he going to be available?
Well, I have an answer.
So please, fire away.
Right, okay. Well, first of all, I want to just say that when I started Connecting Consciousness, I deliberately started it without a bank manager, without buildings, without PR people. I wanted just to create an organisation around the goodwill and the good intention of other people on the planet. But I always knew that there would be issues. And we've had some issues, and I want to share them, not because I'm, airing dirty washing in public, but because I want people to understand what goes on when, you set up an organisation, and I'm sure people like David Icke and, Deb Wilcox and Alex Collier will all understand this. But I think it's worth saying. I have an issue in Germany at the moment where a member of Connecting Consciousness, had a disagreement with one of my coordinators, and that's fair enough. It's a free world. But in order to try to settle that, I did a joint Skype. And this particular individual hid from me on Skype. I thought I was talking to someone else, and suddenly he sort of appeared from behind this person after about 5 minutes. So I got rid of him, not because of what had happened between him and the coordinator, but because for someone to hide from me on Skype, you have to ask what's going on in that person's head, or what's going on in their heart or their soul. And as a result of that, I think he's taken to Facebook and in German, and written lots of odd, funny things. So that's one issue that I wanted to share, which I thought was mildly amusing. The other one is less so. Connecting Consciousness is many people, literally thousands of people throughout the world, and to some individuals that is a market, that's a base, and I never set this organisation up to make money like that. And I've had to remove 5 people in the last 8 months who wanted to use the organisation that I'd set up so that they could make money on the back of that. And one instance where there was to be a weekend retreat where I think people were to be charged £250, which isn't much if you compare to America, but I think £250 in Britain is a lot of money. And I didn't know anything about it. Isn't that amazing? So I got rid of those people as well. So organisations are attacked. If you are trying to do good, there is always somebody who wants to take you off in a different direction. So just want people to know that when I say sometimes I'm busy, I am actually busy dealing with people who bring problems to me that really there shouldn't be. So that's my Germany. I've got a little list here. That's my Germany and my UK. Now, bookings. I'm delighted to say that I'm going to be taking bookings. And, yeah.
I said, you've no idea how many people have come to me
I know.
saying, "Oh, Simon's not doing this,"
Right.
And it's like some of the questions that some of their positions is like, you could see anybody with this.
Okay.
It's there was one, I don't want to minimise it, but they were saying, "Oh, well, I was abused as a child, and that's why I need to see Simon." But there are many resources. So. Do you want to talk about like there's a specific reason, specific kinds of abuse that is your remit? Can you be very focused about that?
Yeah, I mean, if someone's been abused as a child, they may exhibit what I call phase 1 or phase A. All mammals, human mammals, respond to trauma in a set way. And that would be, without question, it would be what I would call phase 1 or phase A. Now, a trained psychologist or any of the professional people who've gone to medical university or psychological school would be able to assist there. Phase 2 is where someone has been through phase 1 and then has developed perhaps what I refer to as alternate personalities, but they can be sometimes caused not by programming but by a reaction to that phase 1. And although that may not be through a satanic cult or through a secret society, I can actually assist with that if necessary. But you're right, JP. My main focus are people who have been subject to trauma and have what I call phase 1 and phase 2, and it was part of a program to affect the mind of that individual, generally as a child. So if people come to me, I won't turn anyone away, but I will say, I actually give them what I call homework to do. I give them a set piece of homework, which I then rebook them for about a week later, and depending on the answers they give me to that piece of homework, I know whether I'm in a position to help them or not. So I charge for the first consultation. The second consultation I do for free, because I might say to that person, right, listen, I've heard your answers to this. I don't believe I can help you, and I haven't charged for that. Now, if I say to them, actually, yes, I can help you, I still won't charge for that, but I would book them for further sessions. So we're really looking in terms of abuse cases where there was more than one incident of it, and there was the person remembers something about programming or suggestions. The problem is that when you're a child, you blank these things out, you block them out, and you can only get little snippets, and part of what I do is to work with that person. So that's it. Now look, what we're going to do, I'm going to open the books. I am going to give everyone an email address on air now. This is only to book a session. Please don't write to me with questions. I'm not going to answer them. Please don't write me a huge long essay. I'm not going to read it. I can't. Just tell me, just email in saying that you want to take a booking, and then I will, put you into a list, and I will get back to you and I will book you. So if you can get yourselves a pen and paper or whatever it is, if you want to email me, and it's going to be my personal email, I'm going to take it away from the website because, I'm going to be doing this myself. If you write to Simon, SIMON, .Parkes, PARKES, 3. That's the numeral 3. So Simon.Parkes 3 at btopenworld.com. I'll repeat that because that's all one word. So it's Simon.Parkes 3 at btopenworld.com. And if you email that, It's a first come, first served basis, and then I will email you back and give you a set time and a set date. Now please keep to that date. Right, that's that done. Now, we have had huge issues on the internet recently, and that's actually been the service provider, British Telecom, and it was so bad that it actually made it to the newspapers. The British Telecom, who provide the internet to most of the properties in this country, had some real serious issues, and as a result of that, many people lost information, and I was with that. So if you have had an appointment and it didn't happen, will you please also email on that, and I make a separate list. Now those people who have missed an appointment, I will put you to the top of the queue. So please email in on that, and I'll make two lists. So that's that. The weather actually has been pretty dire. We've had flooding down here, and it's been snowing like mad. It's been very difficult to travel about the country. Flash floods, and goodness knows what. And I'm hoping that, because I've got a few, conferences that look like they're going to be booked for April, May onwards. I'm hoping the weather's going to improve for that. So that's my sort of 3D news, if I can call it that. And I think we better go straight to the questions.
Well, there's a kind of corollary to this. We had a booking with yourself, myself, and Jim Nichols and Tolek.
Yeah.
In December. Could we schedule that for sometime?
Yes, of course. I mean, what's happened is that, it wasn't my end in the sense that
I understand you
weren't here, but they appear to have fixed it. It was to do with some master control somewhere, and it was switching off parts of the country, and they didn't know about it. So now they know about it because it basically reads the newspapers. So we should be okay now. We should have pretty good connection.
Oh, that's really good. As a corollary to that, my particular internet, I was complaining about it. I finally got BT. It's all BT, Who runs BT? We got to ask them. They fixed my line as well, so I've now got a very, very solid line and a higher speed, because in there trying to get my line better, they tweaked it so they get as much out of it as possible. So
I think what's happened is it got to the media. The newspapers were carrying the story, and there was some talk that it could affect the stocks and shares, the bonds, and it's amazing how that really made them buck up their ideas.
Isn't that funny?
I think sometimes the media does have a useful role to play.
Very good, very, very good. So that's the other one is I am getting nag after nag, so I'm going to ask. I think I've asked him, but would you be prepared to do a show with Alex Collier, a long show? I think we've spoken about it.
I really would. Definitely yes. When?
Okay, up to you. You're the busiest one, so you tell us when, and then we'll work around you. Okay.
Right, well,
that's the deal. Not now. But maybe after the show or something like that.
Yeah, when we finish, then I'll sort a date out and that'll be confirmed.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So,
there we go.
Hang on, I was trying to do the little thing.
You lost the button?
Yeah, I was in the middle of a rename. All right, there we go. Where's the button? Where's the... Oh, God. There. And now... Let's go to the questions and see where we're going. So, now I'm going back to, because people started sending questions, and as soon as we got this question system set up, I can't tell you. I think there was about how many per page? I think there's about 25 questions per page.
Okay.
And we've got 4 pages of them as of now.
Right on.
At the end of the show, we'll probably have 6. Anyway, so. I've just sent you, there was a message from French TV Canal Plus, so that's just sent into your thing. So the next one is when are we going to hear Simon Parkes and Alex Collier? So we just answered that. So question next from Chrissy. Good evening, JP. Good evening, Simon Parks. I've been listening to Connecting Consciousness videos posted on YouTube, and I wish to thank you for such a luminous program. Luminous. My question will be short. How do I count, how do I count or measure the increase of my DNA strands? Since I started practicing Tai Chi a year ago, I felt an enormous surge of my vibrations. Perhaps a test can validate what I simply feel. Sending you much love from Florida.
Right. I just had an advert for a well-known breakdown company appear. How odd.
This is the new Skype where it advertises while you're talking.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
If you subscribe to Skype, if you pay them a little bit of money, that'll go away.
Take it off.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not paying them any money. Corporations make enough money, don't they?
No.
Right, okay. There is a connection between spirituality and psychic ability. And the two should run broadly equal. If you're out of balance, for instance, if your psychic gifts are very, very powerful, but you're not very spiritual, then you can go down the wrong road, and you can, as they would say in Star Wars, you can be drawn to the dark side. If your spirituality is very great, but your psychic ability is quite low, then you're not able to put into practice in a physical sense what you truly know to be right within yourself. So it's important that we connect the strands, we connect our higher self, and that we are trying to be as evolved as we can. There isn't a test as such, because you could be very, very psychic but not spiritual. So, you may be quite capable of levitating a matchbox, but that doesn't mean that you are a very spiritual person. And I'm very keen that both should develop together. What you're looking for, I suppose, is an increased compassion towards all good things, but a heightened sense of knowing. In other words, you could finish someone's sentence off for them. You'll know what the woman on the radio is going to say to you. You're going to know what the time is. You're going to know that the colour of the woman's dress is who's going to walk around the corner. So you should see an increase in premonition ability and knowing ability, but at the same time your commitment and understanding to the human race should also increase. So unless you got the odd gift that I have, where you can actually look and count a number, and I'm not the only person to be able to do that, but very few people seem to want to go public with it. That's your best bet, is to try and look to this balance between the psychic ability and your spiritual ability. So that's my best answer.
Because of course that's the thing about these races that are, we're having to deal with. A lot of them are very advanced technically, but not emotionally or spiritually, are they?
In fact, some of them have zero spiritual, because they are not very human. They are sort of half biological and half mechanical, and therefore they weren't created by source. So therefore they don't have a concept of spirituality. They only have a concept of I do this and then I do that. And so you cannot communicate in a human fashion with these creatures, because they are lacking that empathy. That's why so many people report they are hurt by particularly greys, because greys have no spirituality, so they don't actually value pain like that, and that's really hard to understand. And it's their problem, in the sense that they haven't evolved to that point. They are very, very trapped. So yes, some creatures of course have a huge high ratio of spirituality and psychic ability, and therefore we would call them higher humans, and we can normally get on with them.
Yeah, they're not too hard to be around. So now back to Earth, from Alec. Hello, Simon. Who killed Justice Scalia, and why did they do it? I don't know if you could answer that kind of question, but yeah, go on.
It's difficult, because the person who killed them is still actually in a reasonable position of authority. And it wasn't just one person, it was an organisation. If we're thinking of the same person, this person had more than one name, but I'm not going to go into any more detail about it.
Thank you. Okay, good.
But yeah.
That's good enough. So that's enough of a clue as to who and why. Okay, so there's another question from Monica saying, my question is he okay? You're the only person I could think of. Yes, Simon's fine. Here he is. Okay, Woman in Black. What is your...
how interesting.
Yes, what is your perspective on... Actually, I know who this is, and she's not at all in... anyway, from what I've come across, mostly we want not to engage in any Kundalini activities, awakening activities, unless guided by an experienced guru. And people are reporting dreadful mental experiences. What would you say about the Kundalini energy as an... Sorry, I'm saying this too... I need to... What would you say about the Kundalini energy as an aspect of the 12 DNA strand activation process?
Right.
Sorry, Chris.
Let's just... I don't understand the connection between that and the Woman in Black.
That's her. That's who she's described. You know, it's like the from line, the two line.
I see.
Yeah, but it's somebody I know who's. I don't regard her as wearing black, but anyway, bless her heart.
All right. Okay. No, that's great. The reason for that is that obviously we're all, or hopefully we're all aware of the really great film called Men in Black, and what I think vast majority of people and many researchers don't understand is it's not just a male-dominated industry. There are women in black as well, both humans who have tremendous psychic ability and very non-human type creatures. And they don't refer to themselves, by the way, as men in black or women in black. They refer to themselves, if we were to translate it into English, as enforcement. So that is their role, to enforce. So anyway, that's the Men in Black story.
Right, because I remember you talking about that when you were a kid. And
that's
they
right.
said, who are these people? And they said enforcement, and they were the Men in
Correct.
Black. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so on the cinema, on Hollywood, we call them Men in Black, but that's not actually what they're known as. All right, okay. We have to be careful with the Kundalini, because obviously this is all about a snake, basically, or two snakes. And we have to be careful that the esoteric that we're following is not infiltrated New Age. Not all New Age is infiltrated, but some of it is. And I like what the person has said here, if you go to a ayahuasca session or something else like that, or to a environment where you are going to basically give your sovereignty away, you have to do a number of things if you're going to come out of it the same person that went in. First of all, you do have to understand that this is dangerous. In itself, it's not. But if I was a negative entity, what would I do? Would I spend my time going to different people's houses? Or would I try and wait until 30 people all came into a room together, and then I've got everyone together? And that's what these negative entities do. They attempt to congregate where there are groups of people who will take some form of substance that transfers them from this reality into another reality, and in many cases it's the reality that these creatures inhabit. So you go into their home turf, so they have that upper hand. So you need to know who the guru is, or whoever's officiating. You really do need to know, and the best way is from personal experience of your friends. So if your friends have been and done a session and come back and they're fine and they talk highly, go with that. Do not just go on the internet and just see what's read, because things are posted that are not true. Also, don't participate in something that gives away your sovereignty. Never, ever, ever give away your sovereignty. I don't care what or who, just don't do it. But you can go on these drug-induced trips, which can be very rewarding and can actually give you insight. So I'm not actually knocking that. It's the mechanism around that. Some of these places have been infiltrated. Some of these organizations are just purely set up to provide these individuals for these entities, and many of these organizations are bona fide and are very good. So if you are going to do it, please make damn sure that you're going somewhere where you've had a good recommendation. I wouldn't do it myself. Okay, JP,
thank you. Excellent. Okay, so meanwhile, back in the Peter from Vienna. Hi, Simon. Please explain a little bit more on why on board of Mantid ships there are reptilians. Sorry, the English is not broken.
Okay.
They need them to play security and watch a toilet on board, like you told us. And please tell us a view of the Mantids regarding the Archons. You told us the influence of the reptilians very much about, but they're very much because about their pride. But how is the relationship between the Mantids and the reptilians? What's the deal between them? What's their hierarchy? Who answers to whom?
Well, when a writer to the show posts a question and shows me that they have listened to the radio show by very cleverly slipping something in like that, and I quite like that. Right. I associate some of the robotic greys and the reptilians very closely with the Archons. I do not associate the Mantids with the Archons. They're a different group. I mean, some people come out with stuff that I don't accept. Some people say that the Mantids were created by the reptilians. Well, that's frankly is just nonsense. The point is that the reptilians got trapped. They got caught because of their greed, their need to control, their need to obtain territory and enlarge and expand. They were very easy to get caught. If, on the other hand, you come at your life story from something different, which is about expanding your mind and trying to get to grips with the universe or the multiverses, then you're much harder to ensnare or entrap. The Mantids and the reptilians do work together because, as I've said many times before, the reptilians are very, very good geneticists, and anybody who's understood Adam and Eve will know that, but they're also absolutely first-rate at nanotechnology. So if you were an independent race like the Mantids, you would go shopping, just like, we go out to a supermarket and we buy an orange from this store and we'll buy something from that store. So the Mantids go out and they trade just like all of these groups do, and they actually trade with the reptilians because the reptilians have created things that other races haven't. However, it's closer than that because both creatures belong to the fourth dimension, so they're neighbours. So you can imagine one garden fence abutting onto another. They have joint arrangements, but they are separate. So in other words, it's very difficult for a Mantid group to operate in a particular sector of space, for want of a better word, if it was at war with the reptilians. It couldn't further its own agenda. So they formed peace treaties so that they could travel through different parts, through areas controlled by each other, without automatically eliciting a galactic war. And one of the interesting places is what I would call Cyrus, but in American is Sirius, because that's a large place that's seen lots of wars, but over recent years, I mean recent, not a few thousand years, very few wars, because it's part of this, like a green zone, for want of a better word. Reptilians make guards, absolutely no question of it. If I was in a Mantid body and I was going into a bit of a hot spot, I couldn't do better than have some reptilian guards around me. But I wouldn't sit down with them to do any planning. I wouldn't sit down with them after hours and have a chat with them because, frankly, then the Mantids don't trust the reptilians, because the reptilians cannot think outside of the box. The reptilians are on a hiding to nothing. They're on a cul-de-sac, a dead end. And who in their right mind would want to be attached to a race of beings that are charging headlong towards destruction? So it's a relationship that is a day-to-day relationship. Okay, you want to do this, I want to do that, can we make an arrangement? Oh good, that's Monday sorted out. Let's see what we've got on Tuesday. So in other words, it's an arrangement that could be curtailed at any moment. I hope that explains a bit.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And so the Mantids don't sit down and they don't ask the opinion of the reptilians. But the reptilians just go along because, fine, fine, I'll be your protector. It's a bit like, you don't have to tell them what the heist is. Just stand there, and they'll be happy. It's like a guard dog. Dogs are really happy to be like, okay, guard this. Oh yeah, I'll guard this. Okay, yeah.
The reptilians need the mantids more than the mantids need the reptilians, because throughout all of the fourth dimension, and it's a massive dimension, throughout all of the fourth dimension, the mantids have been accepted as the arbiters for hundreds of thousands of years. And so if any other race was to declare war on the mantids, then they would be taken out of that judgment circle and they would be ostracized. So the mantids, it's hard to describe it. If anybody plays chess, if you were to create a new piece that doesn't exist on the chessboard, and that piece could travel from one end of the chessboard to the other and not be attacked or taken in the game of chess, and had free movement, then that's the best way to describe the mantids. So they'll make deals, but they are independent. So I think I probably, in that couple of sentences, explained it better.
That's great. And what other players might there be in this exo scenario? So you've got the reptilian.
There's good guys and bad guys.
Uh-huh. And what's the sort of proportion? I mean, is it like 50-50, 60-40?
Of what? Good guys and bad guys?
Yeah.
Oh, 75% bad guys, 25% good guys. Fourth dimension is a very challenging and difficult place to be.
Right. That's the fourth dimension.
So you, JP, come from the fifth dimension, so you don't experience that. You haven't experienced that. So, people who've come from the fifth and didn't stop off for a holiday or a vacation in the fourth, it's a completely different outlook. It's a completely energy signature base that you have. If you go into the fourth dimension, you have to be very, very brave, because you have to go in there and not take too much damage. And the longer you stay in the fourth dimension, the more harm you take. In other words, on this planet, we have words like black magic. We have words like the occult. That's the words we give to energies. Now, in the fourth dimension, they don't have the words black magic or occult or even satanic. But the energies that we give those words to are created and fixed in the fourth dimension, and they flow from the fourth to the third. If you're in the fifth dimension, there is no satanic energy. So this is the difference. So when somebody comes, say a Palladian comes from the fifth dimension into the fourth, it's a heck of a shock for them, because they are having to face a culture and an energy-based signature which they've never seen in their life. And it's the same if they go straight from the fifth and come here to the third, because the third dimension is a microcosm of the fourth. So we are just reliving that fourth dimensional energy. That's why when we make this evolution, we don't really need to stay in the fourth dimension very long. Anyway, I need to go on to the next question.
Yeah. Wow. Really great answers, though, Simon. Now, there's a lot of interference on the internet just now. And what I'm going to do, what is it? It's past. Let me just put a little 20-second break on, and I'm going to disconnect and reconnect the stream server. So just give me a minute.
Okay.
We're going to do, let's put a bit of Kate on. There we go. Kate. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Now, that should have reset the servers, and that will sort of slowly propagate to the people listening. We have got an overload on our website database. I don't know why that is, maybe too many requests, but we've never had this much stress. We've now got probably about 300 listeners. So
well, that's really good.
Yeah, it's great, and it kind of tests our systems, and when they break, well, then we fix that bit, and that's how we evolve. So we don't start off with an incredibly expensive website. I wrote this thing from the scratch, and so if it doesn't work for 300 people, then I just make a fix to it, and it'll work for 500, and then it'll break, and etc. It'll keep going. So that's how we do it. So back to Simon Parkes and the Connecting Consciousness show. Rented. I mean, I got there's one that it's even it's just it's maybe somebody stole it and stuck it in there. Just anyway, from Haley. I listen to your show every month and wish you could do this more frequently. Simon has such wonderful insights and JP conducts a delightful interview. I'd like to ask about the current primary elections in the US, and here's Simon's take on Donald Trump and the causes of his popularity. Thank you for all the good work both of you do. The whole focus on these big politicians and this enormous palaver that they're going through while the country is falling to pieces.
Well, first of all, thank you. That's a very lovely thing to say. It was lovely. Yeah. And we do have lots of American listeners, and it's not just about America. Whatever happens to the present race obviously impacts on the world. I think it was a surprise to many people that Jeb Bush pulled out, Republican, and how I would answer the question is to say that at the moment there are two, from the Illuminati, there are two visions. The old guard, which is steady as she goes, don't rock the boat. This has worked for 100 years, more. Let's make it work for another 100 years. They are all behind Hillary Clinton. So this arm consists of what I would call the new Illuminati. So these are the politicians and some of the individual businessmen. I'm saying men, there will be women, but they're mostly men. Women are a bit too clever to get involved in politics. So we've got Hillary Clinton being supported by the old guard. We have Donald Trump being supported by the new creation. And these are the military-industrial complex. So the military-industrial, we can add the pharmaceuticals in on this, they are supporting Trump because Donald Trump is Ronald Reagan on steroids. And they know that they can get Donald Trump to agree things that no other politician would agree on. All right, who's going to win? At the moment, looking at nothing to do with politics, looking at energies, Trump is going to win. And that is a surprise for many people, I think. But looking at the energies at the moment, it looks like Trump will win. If you want to look at the 3D stuff, the industrial military complex have trillions of dollars, and they can basically buy the newspapers and the media. So in terms of promotion of his candidacy, they can do that. I was chatting to a very good friend of mine a little while back, and we were saying that where does it say in the Constitution that if you want to stand to be a candidate for the presidency, you have to have between $3 and $5 million. So just to stand, you have to have between $3 and $5 million because you have to pay for all the forms that the state wants. And apparently it costs around about $1 billion to run a successful president's campaign. Now that's staggering. So it's not about the man or the woman who's the best for, the American people. It's who's got the most money. And that's the stark reality. So, okay, that's my answer. And I would just give a warning and basically say that if Donald Trump is elected, we could see some serious issues in some of the American states within 6 months in terms of kicking back at the federal government. Right, there we go.
Thank you very much, Simon. Okay, so here's a question from Tanvir. Where will the people who don't make it to the fourth density go? They won't be able to intermingle together, would they? On previous shows, you've said that they would slowly phase out. If they can't intermingle, how will the fourth density people know the third density people are slowly disappearing?
I don't think it matters. When Jesus was walking through a village one day, and he had his followers with him, and there was a man sitting at the side of his little brick house, and he said to him, Master, I would like to follow you. And so Jesus basically said, well, join me and come with me. And the man said, my father has just died. Can you just wait while I bury him? And Jesus' reply was, let the dead bury the dead. And of course this really greatly upset the man, and he didn't want to follow Jesus because he thought Jesus had been disrespectful to his deceased father. But he failed to understand what Jesus was saying to him. What he was saying was, if you're no longer here, you don't have an effect. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about something that's not meant to be here. It's gone. It's moved on. It will look after itself. And so we don't need to worry about those people who are not meant to make it through to the next stage. That's not our issue. Concentrate on yourself. Concentrate on those who you love and those that you're going to support and help. That's where your focus needs to be. Next question.
Thanks a lot. Right. I Want to Ascend is the name.
Good.
Question for Simon. 5 questions. Well, how many do you fancy?
You choose one.
All right. Right. Okay. All right. Question 1 is about Anu. Question 2 is about distilled water. Question 3 is about cannabis. Question 4 is holistic doctors being murdered. Question 5 is about garlic.
Oh, let's not do the garlic.
No, let's not do the garlic.
Let's do Anu.
Yeah. I think question number one, the first thing that came out of the gate. So, what has Anu, or Daddy, been doing lately now he is no longer affiliated with the elites?
Desperately trying to work with a fraction or a splinter group of scientists and a splinter group of elite people who've got nothing to lose in an attempt to forge a new government, so that when this system collapses, as it's very much on its way to collapsing now, he wishes to try to fill the vacuum with something that's just the same but repackaged. So we have to be very careful we don't allow that to happen. So what Anu is trying to do is to preserve some element of his control, but with a new machine. In other words, a new vehicle to be the government. And that's what we have to be very vigilant, that we don't buy into something that's just the same that we had yesterday, but has been wrapped up in pretty paper. So they're all desperate. They are absolutely all desperate, and it would be funny or laughable if it wasn't so damn serious.
Maybe one day a comedy film will be made about it.
It would be nice, because then we'll be able to look back on it and say, this was the struggle of the human race. This was what the human race had to go through to achieve where it is now. And so in one way it would be a comedy, but in another way it would be a badge of honour, because those people who stuck to the course, held true, they made it. And they should be damn proud that they made it, because this whole system is designed to push you off the road, isn't it, and to knock you into the gutter. And we'll quickly, I know we said one.
Go on.
There are a lot of holistic people being murdered at the moment, because through holistic science, so I'm going to call it science, through holistic science, great cures can be achieved, and the pharmaceutical industry is becoming very concerned that people are turning away from their salesmen and saleswomen, what you would call a doctor, a physician. I know there are doctors out there who listen to the show and do support me, and I'm not meaning to be rude, but you are trapped in a system and you know it. So that is why a lot of these people, because it's provable, if you have cancer and it's cured and you haven't taken anything out of a bottle or any rays out of a machine, then that is irrefutable evidence. And so that's why some of these true healers are being murdered, because they have the ability to prove that the mind can heal. So there's 2 questions answered.
Thank you. And that's That covers a lot of ground, because many people have been noticing. It's getting noticed, right? Okay, no. Meanwhile, Max of Steel, and this is not Captain Max Steel, by the way, just in case anybody's going to jump up and down, because there's a Captain Max Steel who's got a show on Wednesdays here on Football Spirit, and this is Max of Steel, who's a member of Connecting Consciousness, and he's a lovely man. I mean, we've had chats. Anyway, Simon, you told me once, that my soul was Arcturian and that I passed some time in the fourth density with reptilians. During a meditation, I was looking for my soul memories, but they were sealed by a dragon or reptilian face. What can you tell me about that? Thank you once again.
Right. It's very, very common. I'm obviously not going to talk in personal particulars, because I know this person, I do remember, and I wish to protect them, but they have come forward, so I'll do it in general terms. When somebody from a higher frequency comes to the third, it's quite common to pass through the fourth and wait a little bit, because you are sort of preparing yourself for the third dimension. There are many, many questions that can only be answered in the fourth. If a person is having an image of a reptilian, I would suggest that they are seeing themselves when they inhabited that body a very long time ago. That is the greatest energy answer. The other alternative answer, which does carry some energy and could be true, is that is the face of a reptilian that is has some control over them and is preventing them from regaining their memories. So, in other words, the individual himself could be blocking the memory, or somebody else could be blocking the memory, because remember, when you get memories, that's power in the sense that it empowers you. So I suggest that person might want to just drop me an email and rebook.
Excellent. Now the bookings are open again. So, Robert, Robert, has our timeline been messed up with, as we find out that more and more people have different memories of past events, aka what's known as the Mandela effect? Have you heard of this?
Yes.
Right. So I noticed that somewhere along the line the questions that didn't get asked were about the Mandela effect. So, Simon, the Mandela effect.
Right. Both good and bad, or whatever you like to call it, in real time, are fighting over the energy of humanity's existence, and humanity directs its own timeline. But what you can do is you can manipulate that energy to try and choose a path which more positively supports your vision. So if I want a one world order, which I don't, but if I did want a one world order, I would try to, that's what all the terrorism is about. It's not about making people fearful, full stop, or this fake terrorism. It's about making people fearful and then manipulating that energy and trying to use that energy to push the development of humanity down a set route. So you have, for want of a better word, good agencies and bad agencies trying to do that. However, in the past, there has been an attempt to influence the future. And that's actually something that, we've been in many films on. You can predict, and you can go back and you can go forward. And sometimes the timeline begins to move away from the choice of the human consciousness and tries to reconnect back in a circle or an elliptical back to an origin point, which wouldn't do us any good, because we'd end up going back and having to relearn what we've already done. So all I can say is that humanity is still on a positive course. That is why the negative elite have been throwing everything they can via the media. I was in just an ordinary store over the weekend, and I was looking at the Blu-ray discs and the DVD discs, and there are so many films that aren't, box office hits. They're just being released, all about alien invasion. I have never seen so many DVDs for the last 3 months now, and it's getting out of hand, I think, where every other one is a science fiction, which is okay in itself, but is about aliens invading Earth and people fighting back, and the aliens, etc., this, that, and the other. The last time we saw anything like this was the 1950s, between 1950 and 1956, 1957. And the media, the large corporations are attempting to manipulate the timeline through negative perceptions of first contact. So again, that's my best answer on that, without going into huge detail.
Because if an ET approaches an emotionally excited human, what happens, Simon? Because this is important, isn't it? It's intense for them. It's too intense for them.
Yeah, if a fourth dimensional entity approaches a human, it will what people call it'll have sleep paralysis. In other words, when a fourth dimensional entity generally engages with somebody, they'll freeze them up. When a higher human, that's a positive human, they don't do that. They try and get the connection. But the problem is that if you've seen 5 or 6 B movies, and I'm agreeing with you, JP, if you've seen 5 or 6 B movies about half of Los Angeles being wiped out by these aliens, and then here, lo and behold, is a real alien, unless you're very, very strong, you have been mind programmed to believe that this thing is going to kill you. And that's what they want. They want to do that so that if they decide to go down the road of a false flag, then they have sown the seed, because everyone's seen all these horrible films.
Yep. So, thank you for that. Right. I'm just gearing up for pronouncing this word. Osciliano. Simon Parks. I have a question about half-human, half-animal beings. Since childhood, I've had a fascination and feel connected somehow to beings such as mermaids, minotaurs, centaurs, etc. Are these beings real? Were they genetic experiments? Or are they metaphors? Much love for you and JP. Your work keeps me encouraged and going.
Well, that's a nice thing to say. If you haven't read it, it's written, maybe 1906. H.G. Wells, The Land of Dr. Moreau, The Island of Dr. Moreau. If you go and read that, it's about a crazed mad scientist. This book was written at least 1906, probably earlier. A mad, crazed scientist who was cutting up animals and reconnecting them, and these things lived. Not just like Frankenstein, who was trying to create a sort of a human-looking monster, but a mad scientist who was trying to make abominations. The ancient Greeks copied much from Babylon, etc., and there are many, many folk memories of strange and exotic creatures. If you were going to make something, you might have a practice at it first, and so maybe Bigfoot is a practice. Maybe there are many things that we still don't know about. So I would say that I cannot answer the individual questions asking about the Minotaur and many of the others, but if something is deeply rooted in mythology, then I would suggest that there has some truth behind it. It is a subject that's not been studied enough, and this person might actually want to try and do some studying. That would be very helpful, I think.
Definitely. The more people who get interested in a subject, they become experts just by their own enthusiasm, and I think that's a really, really good thing. That people get into their specific loves, because and not to be ashamed of them, because sometimes people say, I'm interested in 16th century sea drills, and like people think I'm weird. I said, just go for it. You might find medieval farm equipment might need a kind of reboot for some of the ideas they use, etc. Anyway, meanwhile, Marie Terzel, Connecting Consciousness for Simon's show. First, I hope you are rested and refreshed. Spring is coming. My question is, will we see arrests? Yeah, this is a good one. Arrest this year for the Bushes, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Tony Blair, Netanyahu, and other elite members. Thank you both for your contributions.
Okay, let's go back to the seed drill. Was it Jethro Tull that invented the seed drill?
Was that his name? Oh, right,
Yes.
so that's where they got the name from.
Why don't you just go and check it when we have a break?
Okay, I'll check that out.
Just see if it was Jethro Tull that invented the seed drill. Anyway, I'd be interested to know if I'm right. Right, arrests. What we often get is many people well-meaning who make all these predictions about X is going to be arrested, Y is going to, all the bankers are being arrested. And I have to say to people, do you know what? If this was really the case on the scale that we're talking about, we'd all be free by now. What's happening is that the top dogs are sacrificing the people under them. There are arrests taking place at the moment and people are disappearing, and that's a fact. But these aren't the key players. These are the people being thrown to try to buy the top people some time. The specific question was, okay, we'll talk about your seat drill in a minute.
There's Jethro Tull, yeah, he did. Anyway,
It was Jethro Tull. You see, this portal I have doesn't let me down. You know, it doesn't do anything.
It's easily distracted, though. I mean, come on.
Very distracted.
I have to stop being random because I come up with these things and then
But I think that's excellent. There's even a picture of Jethro Tull. He's got a nice wig.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
So basically, there are going to be arrests, but you know what? These people who've got so much blood on their hands will not be prepared to either put themselves forward for justice, or do not have enough faith in humanity, and believe that they're better than everyone else and that they should never ask for forgiveness from, the ordinary people. So rather than be arrested, they will either take themselves off planet, but much more likely they'll disappear into underground fortifications. And that is what will happen to some of these key players. They will disappear into underground bases. And maybe they'll survive there for many years. So there will be arrests, you're going to see arrests, but the key people will they won't go down without a fight, let me put it to you like that. Okay.
Thank you. So, yeah, whoops, sorry, what's all that feedback? No, I can't hear it. Oh, why is that feedback coming from? We were, so just to say, so what's the thing about the portal? So I just come up with this random thing about 16th century seed drills as an example of a random hobby, and your people just say, oh yeah, that was Jethro Tull, and you get the kind of how is the information? Is it like a kind of Google Glass, like you get a hologram, or what? How do you get that?
I wish I knew. Only, to my knowledge, 3 people, and what am I now? I'm quite old, but only 3 people I've ever met have ever seen the portal. Most people don't see it, but there's a portal I have. And the reason it's a portal is that it can't be hacked. If you channel, then you're always liable to have infiltration or hacking into it. But portals cannot be hacked. It's a secure communication network between yourself and somewhere else. And I'm very, very privileged to have that. And I can draw down information such as your seed drill man. It doesn't just have to be about Anu. It can be about any topic or any subject. And the next question would be, well, why on earth aren't you a professor at a university? That's because I see aliens, and a university wouldn't have a professor who saw aliens. So that's why I'm just...
You would at my university, Simon.
Oh, what's that, the University of Life, is it?
Yeah, well... Actually, no, it's something that I've been discussing with Alex Collier.
Okay.
Now, what did we call it? The University of Light.
Oh, well, there you go.
And the idea that, it's an online thing, maybe you don't get a degree, who cares? It's about learning, not about achievement, And essentially, we've got a library that we're building up, and you can come visit the library. And it costs,
that's lovely.
You know, it costs $5 to get in for a month. So it buys you a monthly ticket to our library. That's it.
That's lovely. No, that's what we need.
Yeah. And so we're starting off with webinars with Alex Collier.
Good.
And I'd like to see some more webinars from you and from other people. You know, it's like
it is important. I mean, people just don't think, and I don't mean it rudely. They don't understand. I mean, I had a 9-to-5 job, and I did a job like many people do, or people who don't work would love to have. I had a job, and I had to make a decision a few years back, or 2 years back. Was I going to stay doing my 3D job and sort of not really give the time to this, or was I going to give up my job to concentrate on this? And I agonized about it, and I decided to give up my 3D job. So just like many other people, I survive on donations or doing soul reading. So I don't have a paycheck that comes through, and I know Alex is the same. We survive on donations, and people are horrified when I tell that. I don't know what they think I do. They think I'm some sort of stock trader, and that I have a magical job, and then I come on and do my connecting consciousness, and then I go back to the day job. No, I don't have a day job. I couldn't marry 3D working with this energy working, because it would be too corrupting. I wouldn't have the emotional or the energy capacity. So I had to give up my paid job, and I survive like this, and many of us do. I think there are some people that just don't understand it. There was one comment where I got criticised because I did my 2 hours with you, and then the next guest hadn't shown up, and you very kindly asked me, would you like to do another hour? And I said no, because I was going to watch Downton Abbey. And I got attacked because, you shouldn't be watching Downton Abbey, you should be doing more of this. I'm thinking, do you know how much energy I actually lose when I do the show? I mean, I willingly do it because it's really important, but I have to access certain things to answer, and it's a tremendous drain on my energy. So, I just want to remind people that the people like Alex and people like me don't have day jobs. This is what we do.
That's right. And there seems to be a kind of extra pressure on just now on let me say us, people who are like just doing this. This is all I do. Sometimes I fix computers, and sometimes I do readings, but most of the time I'm like either this or relating or whatever. But anyway, let's just make it aware that we're sharing here. We're sharing our knowledge and information, and that knowledge also comes because of the commitment that you made to have that portal. It's not cheap,
no,
is it?
It's not.
So people need to understand that it's not a given. It's not like you're privileged elite and you can walk anywhere and get anything you want, etc., etc., etc. Except you could,
because I'd be corrupted, and that's the whole point, isn't it? You understand that? I know you do.
Yeah.
I tell you a funny story. Then we think we need to have a little tea break.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll tell you a funny story. A very good friend of mine. It would be 2013. There was a person there in this house where I'd gone to visit, who both people had a long association with David Icke. I'm not going to give any names or anything because that's just not right. But both had an association with David Icke, and one individual there had been like a personal assistant to David Icke for a number of years. And I'd gone to the house, as you do, and I can't swear because we're not allowed to swear on radio, but this person said, "What the F? What the F is that behind you?" And this was only one of 4 people who'd ever seen the creature that I refer to as Mum actually walking behind me in an interphased state. And this was a person who'd obviously advised David Icke for a number of years. So you can see this person was very psychic, and that's exactly what you need if you're going to be someone like David Icke. You need somebody, if you don't have that skill yourself, you need people around you who can, watch out for you. And I always thought it was so amazing that this person was one of the few who actually saw the entity that I refer to as Mum, and did describe it as going up to the ceiling that tall. And so it's funny, you know, when I read sometimes on a website called Avalon, and some of the stuff written there is not very nice to me, and I think I just wish that these people who are so negative sometimes and so small-minded, they could actually talk to some of these people who've seen the entity, and it would be a very interesting balance for them. It's quite difficult knowing what I know, doing what I do, and freezing out all of the negative, unhelpful stuff that comes from people who claim to be spiritual and should know better, because I'm dealing, like many of us are, with the attacks that come from the people I expect the attacks to come from the corporations, from people who have a vested interest in preventing decent people on this planet from knowing the truth. So come on, guys, give us all a break, eh? Right, shall we have a break ourselves?
Yes. And what we're going to listen to is one of the group. I've had her on the show a couple of months back, and her name is Sean-Ann Fuse, and she's got such a gorgeous voice. Does anybody ever?
Oh, lovely.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio. This is Connecting Consciousness with Simon Parkes, and that was Sean-Ann Fuse, Shaune and F-E-U-Z in the American form. That's how you find her. Check her out on YouTube or anywhere. She's got a fantastic voice. She was on my show a few weeks ago. That is also in the archives. Which, indeed, is how Wolf Spirit Radio continues. We continue with donations, and we continue with renting the archives. So, as I said before, it's like a kind of library card that you can buy for $5 a month, and you can download as much as you like from our 5-year archive. And we've got some really amazing people we've spoken to loads of people who are in this area. We've got David Icke, we've got Michael Sarin, we've got all the names, Alex Collier, the whole big names, and they're all in our archives, and you can, $5 a month is all it takes. So that's how the station survives, and that pays for it. The station basically pays for itself, and the wear and tear on our computers is also being funded. But it's funding replacements like new hard drives and things like that. But have you any idea how long it takes to copy a terabyte hard drive onto a new one? Anyway, long story, but that's what I've been doing this weekend, is doing massive disk copies and boring computery things. But meanwhile, back at Connecting Consciousness, Simon Parkes, let's take it back. Have you got anything, any corollaries from the break there?
I don't understand the question.
Anything that is pressing you to speak before I start asking questions again?
No, I was thinking about what we were talking about privately and confidentially.
All right, okay. In that case, you're going to like this one. Cats. From Radial Skywalker. Wow. My cat, Nisha, seems to be a sentinel. Of course. When she views what I cannot see, what is the highest density energy with which she might engage? Yeah, so do cats see like higher dimensionally than we do?
Yes, they can see into the fourth.
Into the fourth,
Yeah. So if a cat is observing something, it could either be between the third and the fourth. This is the interdimensional phase, just out of phase of our reality. That's how the shadow beings operate. Or it could be a conscious intention of something in the fourth dimension wishing to manifest itself here in our reality, and a cat, not all cats, but some cats will do that. But what you're looking for, I think, is a cat. Some dogs can do it as well, but it seems to be prevalent with the cats because of the we're talking about the island of Dr. Morrow, because of the connection between the reptilian culture and cats generally, who can resonate with a frequency from another reality. So if something is trying to impinge into this reality, if the connection between the cat, or sometimes the dog, and the owner is one where they've had multiple lives together, so over many lifetimes they have been in association, there is an unbreakable bond between that animal and that individual, and that animal will act as a warning, an early warning, because cats and dogs soon realise in puppyhood or kittenhood that the human is incapable of hearing and detecting what they can detect, and so they then start to take the role for the human. If they're connected to the human and they care for that person, they will then start to do that. Many 3D scientists say that cats bring dead mice back to the house because they're saying, you humans are terrible hunters. When's the last time you caught a mouse? I'm going to bring you a present. I'm going to bring you a mouse. But when a cat or an animal will sit stock still and stare, and I get that here, and I've actually many times just walked up the stairs and moved into the space where they're looking, because they will have detected something. So it doesn't surprise me in the least. And people who are not spiritual would just laugh at that. But when you have your psychic development and your spiritual development, you begin to understand that cats are, and animals generally, have their own soul.
That's a fascinating answer. And definitely, I really miss having a cat around. But the way my house is, it's kind of almost sealed. It'll lock the cat in unless I move it out. So, yes, cats, great. Now, question from Sarah May. People have a hard time keeping eye contact with me, and I seem to be unsettling to some, although I am quiet and polite. Is DNA activation contagious? Am I affecting their DNA by interacting with them or being near them?
No, you're not in the way that you think. It's far more to do with you as an individual, and your connection between the organic brain, which I jokingly refer to as the monkey brain. We all have monkey brains, but it's the organic brain and the real you, the spiritual you, the soul you that's inside. And when in a person the energy soul is in communication with the biological, I have my own words because these words don't seem to be around anywhere. I create my own words, and my word is active. When a person becomes active, then their biological part is in communication with their energy part, and when another person holds eye contact with such a person, then you get a glimpse of the soul. And the reason for that is that the human eye is connected to the brain by the optic nerve, and the spinal column is connected to the brain, and there are untold neuron connections. The soul of a person, the energy soul, the real you, in old money, is about 18 inches long. I don't know what that is in centimetres. It's about 18 inches long. It's American football shaped, so it's elliptical, and it survives or sits within your body, below your collarbone, just to above your tummy button, your stomach button, and that is where your soul is. And it connects to the spine, so it has access to the brain through all of the neuron endings. And so when you look into someone's eye who has been active, you are getting a glimpse of their non-earth human soul. That's what that's all about. So it's not about the strands of DNA affecting them, it's the fact that they cannot hold an eye contact with you because you're not earth human. Now, there are some earth humans who become black magicians, and they then take demons into their own body, jinn or some of the other creatures, and that can make their eyes very unsettling. And that's not because they are in connection, it's just simply they've got a possession going on. Now, I don't suggest that the lady written has got a possession, it's an activation, but you have to be careful. Not everybody with those sort of eyes is a good person. So we have to just do some other checks when we meet people. I hope that's a helpful answer.
And the thing about, if somebody is, possessed in some way, there's a kind of strand that comes from them, isn't there? That is like that tries to jump across from people.
Well, it depends. If person A meets person B, and person B has more potential, then the entity in person A may think, I'd be better off in this other person, so they may attempt to change their house. They're parasitic, so they may tend to jump across because the other person offers them a higher vibrational frequency. If you are a very 3D person with a very 3D job, and that's as far as your life goes, you're very unlikely to get possessed because you don't provide that energy frequency that gives these creatures a buzz. But if you are very spiritual and you are very psychic, then you are open to attack unless you protect yourself.
Excellent, thank you. From Shane, I know you... right. My mum passed away a few years ago, and on the same day I got home and got into bed. I was in a stasis of being half awake and half asleep when I heard her voice in my head, when she said, "Do not worry, do not blame yourself, and I love you." After this, I felt a warm feeling throughout my body. Is it possible she contacted me before going into the light? What are his thoughts on this? Also, does he know what is going on in the Antarctic? Is there something top secret? Well, if it's a secret, nobody's going to know. But anyway, meanwhile, so essentially, could it be possible that his mother actually spoke to him?
Well, first of all, let's hope she didn't go to the light. Yes, absolutely. And why wouldn't she? Because if she had and he had a very close relationship, and the mother would know that he might never forgive himself for things that had happened in the past, and was terribly torn up by it, then Source would actually open a channel and a message would be sent, which would have the resonance frequency of that individual. So I fully accept that. I've had that myself, not with my mother, but with somebody else. So yes, absolutely. The Antarctic is very interesting. You've got a mixture here of what has died a death now, but we talked about the black goo. That's very, very associated with the Antarctic region. We have some bases and we have some portals in that vicinity. And there are always every sort of military ship masquerading as a fishing ship in that area, and this is just one of those ongoing situations. And sometimes it gets people's attention, and sometimes it doesn't. So it's an ongoing situation in the cold parts. Yeah.
Excellent. So now it's a big question. So sit back. Have a nice cup of tea. Marion Morningstar. Dear Simon.
That's a nice name.
It is, isn't it? Thank you so much for all your time and energy. I was wondering if you could shed some light on these two things. Number one, sometimes a baby or a fetus in the mother's womb gets diagnosed through prenatal tests with Down syndrome or trisomy 21. I was wondering if such a genetic deviation is actually caused through genetic manipulation by outside forces, entities, brackets reptilians, from inside the mother's womb, and if that is the case, why do they do it? Are those souls babies of a very high frequency, and is it possible that some entities try to manipulate their physical body or want to hinder those souls to come in because some women decide to terminate the pregnancy in such a case? Or is it pure free... It's a long question. Okay, let's do it one bit at a time then. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not your fault.
She's my kettle.
She's on a roll there, and she's got some really good questions. Although I prefer to break them into sections and deal with it all together. Right, first of all, we have to be incredibly sensitive to any female that has a child with anything like that or loses a child. And I would be very insensitive if I said, oh yes, everything is down to aliens and everything is this, that, and the other. Well, it obviously isn't, because there are, in many cases, genetic issues that families carry that sometimes disappear for 5 or 6 generations and then pop up. But in some cases, I have absolutely no doubt that there is genetic alteration, but it's not actually to harm the child. This is the terrible thing. Genetic alteration is sometimes done to enhance the child, and it goes wrong. And that's what's so desperately sad. So it's not about, the child is so terribly deformed that we need to terminate the pregnancy. If you have a child that is going to accept a non-Earth human soul, then its living speed, its creational force, its vibrational energy will be at such a rate that it would shake the ordinary human body to bits energetically. So both Source in its own way and meddling aliens attempt to alter the child's body so that it can better cope. It's a fit. It's like your hand going into a glove. It can better cope with the frequency of that soul. But the human body is the most amazing thing, and even these creatures who have the technology which would make our eyes water can't always get it right. And so sometimes they manipulate in the hope to create something that can marry up nicely with the energy soul that's expected, and it doesn't work. And what you get are absolutely brilliant, gifted children who, unfortunately, because of the primitiveness on this planet, are unable to communicate, and the bloody medical system looks on these people as a problem or an issue, rather than saying, this child has the most amazing intellect and ability. How can we structure the system so that we can best engage with these children, and instead of seeing them as a problem, instead of seeing them as disabled and crippled, how can we actually recognize that they are wonderful people? And so again, we're on a very primitive planet. So I hope that's an answer.
Okay, so
that was the first one.
Yeah, so or is it pure free will choice of that particular soul to experience life on the planet in this way? I was also wondering, this is another question, if you could give me some clarity on what a hybrid actually is. I know you've answered this question several times, so I hope it's not annoying, but I wanted to get my head around it properly. So the question is a hybrid always someone whose soul is made of different parts, like yours, and or whose DNA was altered? Can a hybrid soul also be a soul that has one origin, such as Pleiadian, but had one or more other frequencies or energies?
Right. No, yeah. It doesn't annoy me. It doesn't annoy me. That's why I do this. The only thing
these are complex questions that I'm interested in as well, because I think
the thing is that I answer it and these questions, and some people connect with that and they get the answer, and others it wasn't right for them to understand it at that point, but maybe in a few weeks' time they will. The only time I get annoyed is when someone comes up to me point blank and says, is the Earth flat? So I'm not being asked if the Earth is flat. I'm being asked a very, very interesting question. A hybridized form is a physical form, so we're talking about the physical body. The whole point of hybridization is to create a physical body that can contain the type of soul that it is scheduled to receive. And when we talk about walk-ins, this is like quite fascinating for me when I'm doing my sessions with people. When I see somebody who has a physical body that was prepared, let's say, for a reptilian, so the energy soul I'm reading is overtly reptilian, yet they are containing a non-reptilian soul. That is an absolute classic of a walk-in. So the body was prepared at the same frequency for type A, and then at some point type A leaves the body and type B comes in. And so there's always a little bit of a mismatch between the new soul that's come in and the body. So the whole point about hybridization is to strike a balance. It's absolutely no good if you create a human-looking creature that looks like a grey, because it couldn't walk down the street and go into the shops and live a normal life, because everyone would be turning and staring and pointing and, running away, or it would be attacked. Yet if it's too human-looking, it won't have the frequency required to maintain the new soul. So this is a balance that these creatures actually have to look for. They're looking to create something that is human-looking and can, get by, but is different enough. And I'm reminded of a very interesting Skype I had 2 years ago, where a mother told me that her 3-year-old daughter was missing a toe, been born that way. So of course the doctors would say this is a genetic abnormality, etc., etc. And the 3-year-old daughter said to its mother, and I quote, "Look, Mummy, they got the blueprint wrong." 3 years old. In other words, whoever's been hybridizing my body has missed off a toe. So hybridization refers to the physical presence of that individual, nothing to do with the soul. Okay, does that help? Oh, we've gone. JP.
No, I'm here. I just went to the kitchen to answer the call of my cup of tea, which was that I needed to address the problem of the boiling kettle doing the whistling thing.
Okay.
Meanwhile, so that was lovely, from a lovely question from Marion Morningstar. We love him. So, now this is a Vegeron, or Wedgeron. Hello, Simon. Thank you for your work and for your support. Have you heard about the planet Hoover, Hoova, and the Hoovian people? They are supposed to be helpful for planet Earth. If so, could you give an impression about these?
Right, I have heard of it, but I have no personal connection. In other words, I haven't met anybody or anything from there, but I have heard, and I don't mean heard from the internet, I have heard about it. It's not new. I think it may go back in terms of records in recent history to the 30s. In actual fact, I think there was a satirical cartoon at some point where they were poking fun. All I can say to you is that I can't comment, because I'll only comment when I've got what I call first-hand information. And if it's something that I don't have that experience of and isn't relevant to the work I do, then I don't access that information. In other words, that it isn't relevant to my life at this time. But, you ask me that question in 3 months' time and I might have a different answer for you. So, yes, I think it's genuine, but I cannot give you any more information than that.
Okay, thank you. Wedgeron. Chris Hewin. Hello, Simon. Do you have any comment on orca, killer whales? You previously commented that the dolphin is a common manifestation form for earthbound Pleiadian souls. Does this apply to orca too? Despite being an apex predator with incidents of them killing great white sharks, there's not a single recorded attack on a human in the wild. On the flip side, they exhibit a playful predatory manner, similar to that previously described by yourselves when referring to... And then the question disappears. Oh.
Okay, well...
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, hang on. Where is it? Oh, no. He's another... so, I don't know. When referring to something. I don't know.
Right. One of the difficulties that we have when we do research is that as soon as we talk about the creatures of the sea, there's a huge upwelling of support for dolphins and American porpoises and things like that, and that seems to be the focus. What isn't widely understood is that all of those creatures at that time were capable of maintaining a non-Earth human soul. That's why Pleiadians have such a strong affinity with water. It doesn't have to be the ocean, but generally is associated with the ocean, and with dolphins. But I always try to widen it by saying it is the whale family generally. So, yes, absolutely. We mustn't get confused, because people say to me, yes, but dolphins eat fish. You know, they're not vegetarians. They don't, you know, they kill other things to eat. And I say, yes, but, you know, you have to understand that when that creature was in the ocean, that's what it was designed for. That doesn't mean that it's not an evolved creature. We have to try to understand that you have to live within the confines of the environment that you're in. Mankind and womankind has the capability to move beyond his or her confines, but a dolphin doesn't. So, first of all, just the fact that they eat fish doesn't mean they're bad. And secondly, it's not just dolphins, it's the whole whale family. But some whales or creatures have lost some of that connection. And I think, once talked about how dolphins don't... When you see a nature program, again, it's all part of this damned attempt to mislead the public, to lie to them. You see these pictures of whales swimming in the water merrily, making whale song. And that's how it's sold. What is not shown generally is when a whale actually points itself down at the seabed. So literally, I want you to imagine the whale's tail up, not in the air, it's under the water, and it's literally, vertical. Then it sings its song, and the song bounces off the seabed. Those whales are very much like a piano tuner. For those people who've ever had a piano, it goes out of tune. And so you get the person, and he or she comes in with a little tuning fork, and they tune the piano so that it's back on. Those whales are doing the same thing to the planet. They are finally tuning the Earth. And that is why the corporations of this world dump oil. They dump oil deliberately under the guise of a disaster, because they wish to kill off these creatures. That's why so many of these organizations like Greenpeace are doing such a good job, where they're trying to prevent whales being murdered. So I'm afraid that some of the corporations are on a hell-bent mission to try to remove this safety device that the Earth has. So the living creatures on this planet are connected to the greater consciousness of the planet, and they are symbiotic, and they work together. So anyway, that's enough of that. So it makes me angry when I see beautiful creatures like whales being killed.
Well, that's something. That's a very interesting aspect, that these creatures are vibrating the portals. The vortexes of the geometric network, is that right? The geometric points, like we'd have, like Hawaii and stuff like that.
I tried to do it in a much more general way, but you're getting into the depth of it.
Almost like if you were to take, like, in a person, and take the planet as a person, that the person has meridians and little points, like that little point on your thumb when you got a headache and things like that.
Well, how about when the person has cancer?
Yeah.
And you hit them with a frequency that destroys the cancer. That's actually what a whale is doing. And that's why these evil, horrible, corrupted humans in these elite positions want these creatures dead, because these creatures are undoing the work that these bad guys are trying to do.
Sorry, I left the kettle on. It's giving me the whale song again. Can you hear it?
Well, there you go. You're being communicated with.
Right, let me ask a question, and then I can get on. Thank you a lot, Simon. This is from Michael in Germany. Thank you a lot, Simon, for what you do. It helps a lot to have around at this time. Question: what are the characteristics of a demonic/AI possession? How can a person know for sure that he has a possession or is targeted by an AI?
Right, okay, you go and do the tea. In every case, the individual will know something is wrong, and I have a little saying, which is, you know something's wrong, but you can't put your finger on it. So they'll know, because we're all divinely created, and we know if something's not right, but we just don't know what. You can't be expected to, unless you have seen the things that I've seen and the experience that I've seen, and you're not expected to know that, but you will know something is not right. And that's always the first sign of the individual fighting back. of the spirit of humanity trying to break free, trying to alert the conscious mind that something has invaded its energy body, a parasite that's there and shouldn't be there. Some of these entities are like a chameleon. They can alter, because they're energy based, they can alter their frequency so that when you when you get someone to scan you or look at you, they don't see anything, because they're just seeing a continuation of yourself. Or when you look at yourself, you don't see it, because you don't, it's camouflaged itself. Okay. Here's some telltale signs. As we get older, we all lose our memory a bit. We all forget where the car keys are or the house keys, and that's normal. But somebody who has a possession and has had for a number of years, the short-term memory will become severely affected. So they really will start forgetting some things pretty drastically. They'll also stop trusting other people. They'll stop doubting other people. They'll begin to doubt themselves. They'll stop trusting themselves. Their mood swings will be like a roller coaster, a fairground ride. 1 minute they'll be like frenetic and high, and the next minute they'll be down in depressions. They will begin to lose their friends. They will not be able to hold down a good job. They will want to just be on their own, be isolated, like an individual on a desert island. And they will start to get some very, very unhelpful thoughts. So that's a sort of a little a checklist. If somebody believes that they have a possession, then they need to email me in and make an appointment. So I hope that's helpful.
Sure. Thank you.
Is the tea made?
The tea is made. 2 cups, actually, because I put the kettle back on, thinking, it's not going to boil for another half an hour.
Where's my cup?
So I've got one here for you.
Thank you very much.
If only we had tea Skype. So, here's a good one. I can't even say this word. Yaldabaoth, or Yaldabaoth. Anyway, so Simon spoke about dreams. Anyway, this is someone called Livia Etherflow. Only, what do you think about Yaldabaoth? I'm interested in your perspective.
I have no knowledge on that at all. You see, sometimes a name or a phrase of names comes out on the internet, and it's interpreted. Maybe it's an old document and it's interpreted incorrectly, and the pronunciation of is of untold importance. I may not know that under that name, but I may have an understanding under another name. So in the case of that, when someone writes in like that, could they please do some research and see if there are other names? The internet is dominated by the people who are able and clever and can use the internet, and sometimes there are people who aren't so clever, but their contribution is very good. So when scanning, just check other people's work as well. I have no connection. It doesn't have any resonance with me and any of my lifetimes or any of the work I've ever done, but I may have that connection with another name.
Good. So, oh my God, how many? Oh, come on. All right, so there's one character. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 questions. Okay.
From one person.
From one person.
Well, they need to book a 30-minute session with me, and they can go through those questions, and I will answer all those questions to them. But do you want to just choose one?
I'm just going to choose the first one, and that will give you a taste. Okay. What are the concerns for military abductees who practice white magic? Are there any specific esoteric restrictions military abductees should oblige? I think that will give you a flavour of what's going on.
Thank you. They're being abducted because they have the capability of magic. In other words, the person who's being abducted, my lab, has the ability to create reality out of thought, and does it for good purposes. but when they are taken into the other realm, they are most likely being used for negative purposes. So they have made a conscious choice in the physical body and the physical world, but they are being taken out and probably being used for non-beneficial purposes. So what is the point? Well, why should you give up your magic practice because somebody is doing that? What you've got to do is to fight the abductions. You've got to prevent these evil people who you never gave permission to from taking you out of your body. So I suggest that you book a session with me, and I will show you how to do that.
Thank you. This is from Matthew. Firstly, I would like to thank you for your bravery and conscientious dedication to truth and love for humanity.
Thank you.
I would like to know if you might have any information on the star system that will supposedly pass by later this month. Will we be able to see the intervention Alex Collier spoke of? In your opinion, could this be a fine enough moment of inspiration for humanity to finally have its aha moment, if Andromedan intervention is indeed witnessed by us Earth humans? And, you know, in general, ET interference or intervention. What's the deal, Simon, from your perspective?
It's really lovely because you know, Alex was saying that there was a few things he didn't fully agree with me on, and one of them was on Planet X. You know, Alex, you know, saying that, you know, it's a star constellation that we're talking about here, and actually on this show I've never actually come out and, you know, put my hand on my soul and said, you know, Planet X is this. If you listen back to my shows, I've said, well, it could be this, it could be that, because I didn't at that point have any information on it. What we're going to experience potentially is some form of first contact, providing that what is coming our way maintains to its original decision. I don't mean course, as in piloting a ship. Certain things can happen on this planet that can force a 1 minute to midnight change. Certain decisions can still be made by the elite that could make a situation a lot better. And I have said to people from America, you know, you guys are in for the rough end this year, because I said March to April is a difficult time, June to July, and October, November. I can't be any more specific, but those are the 3 dates that you've got. Now, it's really fascinating and shows that both Alex and I are, you know, though we get our information from different places, they jolly well nearly always tally. And I think someone was saying to me that Alex was talking about problems in April, and I was saying March to April, because I couldn't be any more specific than that. So I'm hoping that we are going to have some contact from benevolent non-Earth human beings, and I'm hoping that the elite don't try to pass off something as an alien invasion. So March to April is quite critical.
So this is what they're framing when they're trying to give out these alien invasion means, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think because it's a real thing that's happening, and what the elite want to do is to try to hijack the principle of it and say, we got there in first, we got first.
Yeah.
You know, we've sown the seed into humanity via Hollywood, so that we can try and salvage our agenda when something positive happens. And so I'm not actually disagreeing with Alex, really. What I'm saying is that I still think it's not set. If you're a good being, if you're a good person, the last thing you want is to cause harm and damage. You don't want that. And you're always looking for an alternative way that gives you what you want, which is the evolution and freedom of humanity, but at the least cost. You know, it's always the poor people, it's always the good people that get hammered. You know, and that's wrong. That's got to stop. You know, the downtrodden, decent, ordinary people can't be picked on anymore. We can't have this anymore. It's just got to stop. So I don't want good, decent people suffering because something happens. You know, I'm always looking for a way that brings what we want, but at a price that isn't too high. So I don't disagree with Alex. I'm just saying that I am not yet fully convinced what is the outcome.
Well, that's very interesting, because we have a webinar on the 18th of March, which is my 55th birthday, and I love doing gigs on my birthday, contrary to popular opinion of what birthday should be. You know, I like to do constructive things on my birthday. So that was one of the dates by which things should have happened. So let's see what happens, and see what happens on the 18th. So there's a little plug for that. Simon, Christian 92, Romania. Hello, Simon. So I've had this thing happen to me for a while. I think of something, then it's spoken about on the news. I think of a word, then somebody says that word. I read about a subject, then somebody talks about that subject. So this phenomenon goes on and on. I began to realize that sometimes I can attract to myself whatever it is that I am thinking about. Also, I always have nightmares before a bad event is going to happen in my life. The craziest thing that happened to me, we're halfway through the question, the craziest thing that happened to me was one morning while I was asleep, I began dreaming that I was in my house, sitting in front of my open door, and seeing that the door was wide open. I immediately woke up from the dream, went to check on my door, and what I saw was exactly what I've been seeing in the dream that I've just had. The front door was wide open. The fact that I visualized something in my dream that was happening in real time was more shocking to me than the door itself being open. Do you happen to know why all these things happen to me? I am not a psychic person or a medium or anything like that. Thank you, Simon.
Well, you obviously are a psychic person.
Yeah, right.
That's my first point. What is happening here is that you're not actually drawing things to you. What you're doing is you're connecting with the stream of consciousness, the stream of energy. Some people can call it source, but you are connecting. And you know, it's not as rare as you might think. The number of people that will say, "Oh, look at the digital clock. It's 1444 again," or you know, that word has been said on the radio. People who are psychic are able to connect with, it's not random, these things happen, and they happen to individuals. You're not drawing it to you, you are making it happen because it was always meant to happen, but you are aware of it. There are so many people that it happens to, and they're just unaware. They're dead, spiritually or psychically, and so they don't connect with it. The fact that this individual is seeing it is the first stage of waking up. In other words, that this person is looking at these things which, and the Matrix sort of was called deja vu in a way. If we think that time is on a loop, and you are connecting with that. So what that person now needs to do is to develop their psychic and their spiritual ability. So they have opened the door. Now they must, protect themselves, because there will be some pretty nasty things that will want to try and say hello to them. But without any fear, they should develop and embrace who they are, what they're becoming, rejoice in that fact, and go on a big journey of discovery.
So that's a very interesting angle, is you know, developing your own awakenings, because this is what's happening to everybody. You know, we're waking up and we're seeing things, or we're feeling things. You know, I get a sense, I can't see things, but I get a sense of something being here, and it's like, oh, is there something? And then I use dowsing to check, is there something there? And somehow my body can see these things, can perceive these things, but my conscious brain doesn't. And then I use dowsing by you know, using muscle checking to connect that. So it's quite accurate, and it tells me about stuff that's going on that I can't see with my head or hear with my ear, or you know, stuff. So anyway, you know, that's what I recommend. Anyway, so and shungite in my teapot. in my kettle. I have pieces of shungite in my kettle, so don't worry. My tea is completely infused with fullerenes, and I'm probably completely possessed by the internal earth black or white goo. Anyway, who cares? Meanwhile, what's this? AT's brought us duct tape. Took pity on us. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Three Crow. So, probably our final question, Simon, today.
Okay.
And thank you for this show. Alternative measurement from QKey. Hello, Simon. Hello, JP. Many thanks for your work and effort. What is your opinion about alternative methods to support healing processes like colloidal silver, MMS, which is chlorine dioxide, Zappa, or mind machines? Not Frank Zappa, but Zappa like Bob Bex, or mind machines, Light and Love from Germany, Hugi.
Right, I can't comment on mind machines, and I don't have any experience of those. There are a number of individuals on the planet at the moment who are creating or rediscovering technologies which are beneficial to humanity from a whole range of things. And I have spoken to some of these people, and they are real and genuine, and they technologies they've come across are everything from sort of Tesla to Atlantis. So they are really happening. The question is, we all have to be discerning as to whether these things can produce what they say, or whether they can't. So I can't give a yes or no on any individual product or item. I'm not going to do that. But there are some real good things out there. There was one element of that question. Could you just read? There's a bit there that I think I've not understood. There's quite a deep thing hidden within it, JP. Can you just go through it again?
Once again.
I know it was a long one. Can you just pick out the bit that I think was hidden in there?
What is your opinion about alternative methods to support healing processes?
All right, okay.
Like colloidal silver,
Right.
Zappa mind machines.
Well, I absolutely fully support it. If the individual has come at it and their first port of call is, I want to heal people, then that's what they'll do. If the first port of call is, how can I make lots of money? I know, I'll do this. Then that's not going to work. So if they're coming at it because, I don't know, auntie died of something, or they got very moved when they saw something happen, and they then wish to try and bring about a change for positive good, then that's really good energy that's not corruptible. And I think in those cases, then that's brilliant. If somebody is coming about it because, you know what, we're not going to the pharmaceutical salesman anymore, and so we're going to jump on this bandwagon of this new age, and we're going to sell this product which we say will do this and do that, but we know it doesn't really, but it doesn't matter. And we'll use the YouTube and the internet to promote it, and we'll do this big glossy, etc., etc., etc. So do be careful. Do be careful. But there are some really, really good individuals out there who really care and have hit upon the combination of Tesla technology and going right back to the healing of crystals or the energy frequency from Atlantis. So yeah, broadly I support it.
Okay, one final question, I think. Energetic boxes put around people. This is from Kathy. When an energetic box or structure has been put around an individual without their conscious and awareness, how can one remove it? Is there a simple 1, 2, 3 method?
No. This is from the Orion system. It'll be greys. I presume the person's talking about an energy box that they're trapped inside, rather than little boxes being placed around their feet.
Hang on. If entities consider an individual a threat and put an energetic box or structure around them without their conscious consent or agreement, is it possible for them to remove it?
Yes, it is, but not if they are not trained in it or skilled in it. They can do it, but it'll take them a long time. What's happening is that this is from the Orion system, the Orion Empire, Greys from Orion. What they'll do is they'll use your own energy to maintain the field. So rather than have a constant stream of energy being beamed to it, or a battery that runs out, it will actually be psychically looped into your own capabilities so that you are unwittingly maintaining your own prison. It's very clever. It's very devious, but clever. And so we have to cut off the stream of power that we are giving to the box and recalibrate the frequency so that the box cannot communicate with that, and we then need to use that energy to attack, to punch a hole, but in a subtle way, because if you take a hammer, as it were, and try and whack it, you are creating more energy, which only strengthens the box. So the person needs to have a session with me. I can't do any more than that.
Book a session. Simon.Parkes3 at btopenworld.com.
That's it. That's the one.
BT Open World. That's the this is the British Telecom Open World. Oh, yes. Open World. BT. We'll send an engineer who'll just look at the piece of wire and say, no, there's nothing wrong with it, then go away again. And then a week later they'll come back with a machine to test it, and then they'll go away again. And then several weeks later they'll come back and actually replace the wire. That's my experience. Meanwhile, you're talking to me over a really nice telephone line.
So you need to say something nice about BT.
Let's say nice things about BT, because they keep us connected. Simon Parkes, it's been a hoot this afternoon. It's kind of morning for me, but whatever. So blessings. Have a great month. We'll connect soon regarding the show with Jim Nichols and with Alex Collier, and anything you want to say.
I just want to wish everyone, much love and strength, because this is the year. This year and next year are the time of trial, and anybody listening to this show is obviously evolved, and you just need to be prepared. You need to be strong. And so thank you ever so much for listening. Thank you for doing your own research, and don't give away your sovereignty to these false people. Just believe in yourself. So thanks, JP, for making it happen. Thank you.
To Wolf Spirit Radio.